The sight is enough to rob me of my better judgment. I close the remaining distance between us and wrap my arms around him. His eyes widen as he stiffens in my embrace. I rest my head gently against his shoulder and begin to cry anew. Between my sobs, I manage to speak. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're new here. My name is Death by Pony, and today we're playing Lake of Voices. So without further ado, let's hop in. I stand awkwardly dumbfounded at the offer. Somehow the idea makes me nervous, but I cannot argue its benefit. The guide ceases walking as well and dives a hand into his coat. I fidget in my place, trying to remain alert. After rummaging for a moment, he brings the spool of string out of his pocket. The guide pivots his body and tosses it to me. I manage to catch the spinning spool in the air as it attempts to unravel.
Tie it to the end of your wrist, and then throw it back.
I do as instructed, tying the knot tight. After giving the guide a signal, I toss the string across the length of the bridge to him. It creates a thin brown line between us. He catches it dexterously with his free hand. I haven't seen the guide this kind, and I kind of love it. Turning aside for a moment, he rests his staff in the crook of his arm. He snaps the string, storing the rest of it away before he locks the other end onto his own wrist. The guide gathers a section of our link in his hand and tugs on it, making sure my sight isn't too loose, stares down the path and at me, and we make eye contact. As he gazes into me, I notice there isn't any emptiness in his eyes, only strength. When did he change? I began to wonder if it was the other who had changed in order to see what was always there. He shifts his focus away into action to pull me back forcibly into reality. I wait for the guide to get a proper hold of the staff, and then begin to walk once more, the whisper of the lake ringing loudly into the night. Occasionally I still look down at the string. The effect it's having on me already is quite remarkable. Seeing it connect from my wrist to his, this does make me feel far better. It hasn't made us safer, but the dread of being left alone again has faded. I find myself wishing I could get those thoughts across to him, however, and I'm aware enough to know that this is not the time for those kind of concerns. The whispering dies down until they completely dissipate like steam in the cold. The remaining sound of my sphere of awareness now are footsteps and my measured breathing. Earlier, the guide mentioned that talking amongst one another was fine as long as you remained aware of what was happening. I wonder whether he would mind conversing. It isn't to divert worries like it was on the first night. It is that I would like to hear him speak further. The more I've learned about him, the more interested I've become. Guide.
Yes?
Ooh, that was quick.
Is it still appropriate to speak? If so, I would welcome a conversation with you.
He is silent for a time, the anticipation wrapping itself taut around my neck as if waiting for his reply.
I have a name.
Oh!
What?
He has a name!
At the beginning, when I explained that silence was not necessary, your first comment was asking my name. I lied then. I do have a name.
Oh. I find myself at a loss for words. It's such a small thing, and yet it feels momentous. He has a name, lied to me about it, admitting he lied to it, got away with it, and he remembered my question even through the chaos. Without persuasion, he unveils more.
I do not wish to share it. Explaining why is also undesirable. Thus, I've come to tell others I simply don't have one. It's surprising how easily others accept something as unusual as not having a name.
Despite facing away from me, I feel his last line was spoken through a smile. Still, it is admittedly quite strange, even if someone is unnamed at birth. There's nothing stopping them from choosing their own. I grow red-faced. How that never occurred to me at this time. It wasn't degrading, but pointing that out may have been an intentional jab at my expense. He does not speak further, and the delicate pleasantries between us evaporates. His silence isn't the sort caused by a lack of topics, rather it's pensive. He's thinking on something. I wait for him. I would rather let him finish his thought than rush to fill the void with just any words. And he does finish.
It is easier to leave someone calling for help when they aren't pleading to you with your name.
Oh! Oh my gosh! We get an explanation for why this man leaves people. But to be fair, I agree with him. It's a lot easier to leave somebody behind if they aren't yelling at you by name, and that is understandable. Alright, let's get in. In the back of my mind, I worried it had been something like that. I don't bother asking him the obvious burning question. If he wanted me to know, he would have said it. He's still afraid to give me his name. I go with the next option instead.
How long have you been known as the Guide?
I cannot say for certain. The past is something of a blur to me. Keeping count of time is difficult when so little changes on Sinlos. I imagine it must have been several years.
The guide couldn't be significantly older than I am. Such a large part of his life belongs to this lake. I tried to give the dour thought a positive light.
Very few would be able to manage that position with so few years behind them. You are highly talented.
Just like my father.
Oh, this is a turn in the conversation I had not expected.
I recall hearing many similar comments back when I spoke with those who knew Garvin.
Garvin the Exemplar led his people to so many victories. He is a genuine hero to my village. I admit, it is curious to speak with his progeny.
You're not. I am not Garvin's son. He would tell you so were he still alive.
I flinch at his words and immediately regret mine. I spoke so brazenly, it was nothing but thoughtless. I read apologies, however, there isn't an opportunity to even open my mouth before he adds more.
I know that when I was very young, I had no one to help me. I was to take care of myself. One day I decided to travel to the shores of Sinlos, where Garvin was. No one attempted to stop me.
Oh!
After many years on the battlefield, Garvin claimed territory in the area and founded villages. He wanted to understand the mystery of the bridges, or perhaps find another way to cross. To him, the dangers were a new fight, a new purpose. He was deeply wrong. Sinlos is far more than that. There was a presence residing in the lake that they didn't truly understand at the time. I didn't like what was happening. I tried to convince Garvin and his men to break their encampment and move on. It was at first assumed that I was merely a strange, overly fearful child from one of the nearby villages. However, with my persistence in getting him to go somewhere safe and the way I looked, it didn't take long for the rumors to start. Garvin did all he could to snuff out the belief that I was his child. To this day, I wonder if that was the reason he refused to listen to me, or anyone else who began to think leaving might be for the best. After several weeks of investigation, Garvin walked out onto the bridges as he had done many times prior. He brought with him a long rope which he tied to the dock. Usually he was able to return from his brief trips without any issue. However, that night, he never returned. His men pulled in the rope and found there was no one at the end. The rope was slashed through. That was when the creatures got their title, Nixie.
Ooh!
The loss of Garvin the Exemplar was significant. Many years passed before any large effort was made to approach the lake again. During that time, I retreated from the public eye. It would have been too much for me to hold on to what Garvin left behind. That life wouldn't last, for eventually interest in Sinlos as a connector between villages on opposite sides was ignited. I could not ignore it. I made my return to society to continue what I started. Despite Garvin's view on me, everyone from the original endeavor recognized me as his son. I was allowed to be directly involved as a member of the group. There were new attempts to cross the bridges. I was the first to survive it. All who were on the journey with me were lost. I left whoever had difficulties to the maze. It was a seemingly endless night. Death was at every turn. However, turning this back was not an option any longer. They were now willing to accept the loss of a few if it could mean success in the end. I cannot criticize them for it. I was willing to accept the same for my own cause.
Oh my god, we're getting so much history right now.
I continued to cross the lake solely to show people firsthand the horrors. I told myself that I was to survive the trips at all costs. If I didn't, what would become of my hope for the future? The ones who did not live to tell the tale were an inevitability I did not turn away from. My remorselessness, innate talent, and luck were what enabled me to make it across each time. And then it came to be that no one who knew of what lies in Sinlos wanted to cross without me. My experience was invaluable. I used that to my advantage. They wanted a way to cross the lake, and I could give it to them. I took my position as a guide, and the rest of the group returned to protect their villages from the many other threats that plague this land. It was considered a success.
The guide shakes his head, ending his story. I have trouble responding immediately. It is much to take in. Eventually, I do manage to respond.
I appreciate you sharing all of that with me.
There's a sigh.
It has been too long since I have explained myself to anyone. What happened then should not be a mystery. And yet, it is difficult for me to speak of.
He doesn't say anything more, however. I get a forlorn impression from him. I can see a whisper of it in his eyes briefly before he turns away. I'm not sure how close we are to land. We have definitely made progress at steady rate. I find my vision drifting down towards the string between the two of us. It delicately sways to the rhythm of our steps. It eases my mind. The Nixie grow louder again, their whispers ringing in an eerie chorus from both sides of the bridge. Between their chatter, I hear what I believe is a sigh from the guide.
Kika.
Sound of my name spoken so irritably catches me off guard. Despite how serious he seemed, the moment the guide doesn't continue further, I wait. Still, not another word. It is unusual for the guide to second-guess himself in such a way. I'm at a loss for how to react. Does he of all people need encouragement to continue, or would it merely be an annoyance? It seems he has truly no desire to continue. I have no right to push the issue. Two of us keep pace as we cross after the bridge. Occasionally I catch sight of a prowler down another path. That is the closest to danger we welcome. Light begins to filter through the darkness, illuminating the fog.
We're going to run. We can still make it.
I tense at his words, but nod firmly. There is no gradual increase of pace. Two of us dash down the bridge as frankly as the sun rises higher and higher. The silhouette of land comes into view. The distance at the end of the bridges practically rushes towards us. A second later, we are free of them. I feel my feet plunge into the sandy shore. I nearly collapse as we get away from the waterline. I struggle to catch my breath. The guide lightly crouches, using his staff to support himself. He still takes a moment to reassure me, explaining through gasp that Bameli could not remain here on the shore because it would have been too unsafe. My legs quiver below me as the adrenaline rushes out of my body. I rest quietly for a few moments, taking the time to allow my breathing and emotions to settle down. Despite my exhaustion, I feel touched as I am reminded by how much the guide risked coming back out to find me. I'm so grateful to have reached this far, and I am just glad that he survived. Tears begin to stream down my cheeks. The guide straightens himself out with one more deep breath, and I smile at him as we catch eyes. I'm amazed when he ever so slightly returns it. Oh! The sight is enough to rob me of my better judgment. I close the remaining distance between us and wrap my arms around him. His eyes widen as he stiffens in my embrace. I rest my head gently against his shoulder and begin to cry anew. Between my sobs, I manage to speak.
We made it.
Yes.
I hold him for just a little longer, revealing the joy that is finally all over. We are both all right. I'm aware I am lingering, so I let go of him, making sure to step back some at the same time. He, in turn, puts more distance between us. The guide pointedly looks away in a manner that can only be seen as bashful. I start to feel heat rise in my cheeks and likewise look away. I survey our surroundings. Instead, my thoughts slowly begin to form themselves properly. Since Bameli is not here, I should reunite with him at Himmer, the village we were assigned to. Inevitably, my mind also drifts to those who did not make it here. The ones no one will ever be able to see again. A sinking feeling grows in the pit of my stomach. The guide's nervousness has calmed as his cold glare has returned as sharp as ever. As ever was. He speaks to me with a distant tone.
You cannot stay. Even if we've left the night behind us, this place is not safe. And now there is nothing here for you. Leave.
I stand up stock straight and turn to face the guide directly. He grabs hold of the thread that has been connecting it all this time and snaps it. The symbolism of the gesture is not lost on me.
When you leave, I ask that you share your experience with those who might wish to cross the lake. Let them know the toll it takes. I cannot say this to most because they may question my commitment, but I do not believe you will. If you are willing, I would like to have your support in my foolish dream of keeping others away from Sinlos.
Of course! Regardless of how he delivers the message, I am moved by the sincerity in his words.
I will do whatever I can to ensure no one I know takes the journey.
He gives me the bare scent of a smile. I'm actually aware of the terrible circumstances surrounding this experience. It drags my spirit down again. Still, if the guide can smile and thank me, then I should at least reciprocate. He turns his gaze downwards, the faint smile having not yet faded, hope that his goal will be achieved one day. I teeter in place uncomfortably. Finally, I seal myself and take breath to force my words out.
I'd like to see you again. One day.
You can't.
Your response is immediate and severe. That reaction does not surprise me, nor does it put any kind of damper on my determination.
I won't attempt to cross the bridges. I will only come to meet you.
His expression is tightened slightly.
And when will you do so? While I am asleep during the day so I can guide at night? When I am on the island during a crossing? Or will you attempt to have a discussion with me while travelers are waiting to begin what will likely be their last journey?
With each question he poses, his frustration grows. I match his expression with hard stare of my own.
I will find a way.
There is no way. You have to move on. Life does not exist as long as you remain in Sinlos. It is a purgatory residing on the edge of death.
Then what about you? You deserve a life of your own, same as anyone else. I don't understand.
He merely shakes his head.
It is too late. The dead cannot be revived.
As if to illustrate his own point, light drains from his face and becomes an image of emptiness.
Leave this place, and never come back. Please.
Oh. I stare at him hard before I lower my head. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm being unreasonable. It doesn't matter what it would look like for the guide. It is his decision. All I'm doing is being selfish.
I'm sorry. That was out of hand.
He doesn't answer me. I look up from the ground, my face serious again.
I will inform the village I'm heading to and my own that the bridges are not to be crossed.
He looks into my eyes for a heartbeat before nodding, satisfied with my answer.
Goodbye. Thank you for your guidance. I am grateful.
My voice drops slightly to above a whisper.
Be safe.
He doesn't react to the request. I wait for a moment, then start walking into the forest. There is a lump in my throat. I know that once I step away from this lake, I will never see him again. The fact is a painful gorge in my chest. We were with each other for only a short time, but I cannot deny that he has had a greater effect on me than almost anyone I have ever met. I allow myself to look back one last time. The guide is looking at me with quiet, solemn expression. Watching him stand all alone on the shore, reappearing the way he does, he seems lost. But it is abundantly clear this is his honest wish that somehow make it all the more heart-wrenching. Only he can save a person from Sinlos. There is not anyone who can do the same for him. I desire nothing more than to do something to stop this lake from taking so much. I finally believe I understand him in a small way. However, we have separate paths we must follow, and they cannot meet again. I turn forward again and walk with purpose, further and further away from the cursed lake and the brave guide who dwells there. With solemn heart, I at last arrived at Hemmer. They were grateful to see me, for it was a desperate situation indeed. The urgency meant that my mind was occupied with other matters. I worked tirelessly to aid Himmer's own guard in forcing back the brigaders. But during the moments of calm when the sun went down, I would remember the lake. Melly was of great help during the fight. His outwardly positive demeanor lifted the spirits of many around him, but I could see from the shadows of his eyes that he hadn't forgotten what we went through. Nor could I miss the distance that had grown between us. He spoke pure words to me, and I never gave him many either. Yet he seemed stronger than I had seen before. I admire his will. When receiving payment for his service, the guide must give a full report of all those who succeeded and failed to cross the lake. The name and fate of Margaret soon became known in Himmer. I added that she was an intelligent, thoughtful person and urged them to show respect for her passing. I hope that one day I'll have the opportunity to go to her hometown and give my own proper respects. His retelling events had little to say for Lou. I know that because he was not meant to be there and was never one to open up, but still saddens me to face how I never got to truly know who he was. I only pray that those who care for him will learn the truth of what happened. I worry about when I must return home in my usual life. Will it be difficult to continue as things were before? One thing I know certain is that my village elder must be told that no one is to cross Sinlos again. I have already told Himmer's leader the same. Not a single more person should have to experience what we did. Its darkness will remain with me for the rest of my days. Though so much was lost, I tried to believe that our lesson will keep others from suffering the same way, and in the end something will be gained. After arriving at my homestead at the end of the long journey, I decided to take a chance. I requested an audience with my leader and presented a letter to give to the guide when he next makes a report. He graciously accepted my request. Later, I was informed that the guide did indeed receive the message. He gave no response, either positive or negative. I cannot be sure if he does not mind or simply does not care. He may not have even read my letter. But I want the two of us to remain connected, even in just a small way. I cannot give in, after all. It seems something in me feels he was too caught off guard. My stubbornness extended this far. Until he orders I cease communication entirely, I'll keep him in my life, no matter how distant, while sharing a window into my own. And all the while, I continue to support the secret wish he keeps, the one that I now share. Oh, that was so good. The next video will probably just be the little snippet of the last section I have to do. So, without further ado, let's hop off. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, remember to hit like. That way I know you're enjoying the content I'm making. Remember to subscribe. That way YouTube brings you back here to see what happens next, and I won't take up any more of your time. I hope you have a good day. I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.